thank you to those of you who've joined me live for this Q&A. I'm going to go through the questions that were submitted when you registered, and then if there's time at the end, I'll take free-form questions. And if you think of any questions while I'm doing this, I don't know if there's an actual questions thing in Zoom. If there is, you can try and post it in there and I'll look for it. Otherwise, you can just type it into the chat. And when it comes to taking live questions, I think there's a raise your hand button somewhere, or you can just turn your mic on and yell at me and I will respond. So hopefully you can all see my screen. I am going to switch over to PolyNome. I'm currently using iPadOS 26 on here just to test it out. I wanted to check that there wasn't too much work that I was going to have to do to make it ready for iOS 26. It seems to be running okay, which is a relief. So what I will do is I'll show you what's new in these latest couple of versions, and then I'll answer the questions that came through. So the first thing is there's now a light mode. If you go to Menu, Preferences, Display Settings, you can toggle between light and dark, or you can follow the system setting. So if I follow the system setting here, oh great. Oh, maybe my system is in dark. So if I turn this to light mode, then it follows your light mode. So looks odd to me because I'm so used to seeing it, you know, the dark mode version. But one of the things you get here is black notes on a white background, which is good for making videos because, you know, it's a little more commonplace to see black notes on a white background as opposed to blue ones on a black one. But everything else is pretty much the same. Blue is still the main color for the buttons and things, and it's just a kind of cleaner look. That said, I am going to do this recording in dark mode because I'm more used to that. So we'll switch this back. But yeah, you can choose in settings if you want it to follow the system or if you want to fix it in dark mode or light mode. So the second thing I'm going to show you is very niche. I mean, PolyNome has a lot of niche features. I would say that what I'm going to show you is the most niche feature I have ever added. And it was at the request of a good friend of mine, Andre Ferrari, who somebody said he's a really fast drummer. Poor gag. And he was the first person who requested to have conical sounds in the app, and he recorded those conical samples for me. And then more recently, he asked me to put some Japanese swordplay sounds into the app, and I'll explain why. So what I'm going to do is edit the rhythm here and program a paradiddle. So down here, I'm going to do right, left, right, left, left. And I'm going to accent the first note of each of those. So when you have this, a paradiddle or any accented rudiment in the app, you can apply a stroke guide, which in itself is a pretty niche feature. But if you are like a drumline drummer or you've done, you know, a lot of practice pad stuff, you probably know about downstrokes, full strokes, tap strokes, and upstrokes. And they are methods of basically knowing when you can prepare to play an accent. So you can play rudiments more efficiently. And in PolyNome, you can tap on the menu and choose stroke guide. You can learn more to learn all about stroke guides and down, tap, full, and upstrokes. But if you hit do it here, it creates, this is the weird one, I'm going to show you the regular one first. So it creates a stroke guide for you. So in the mixer, what you have now is for what was rhythm 2 is now guide, and you have right hand and left hand. So you can see right hand is this top line and left hand is the bottom line. So right hand shows you what strokes you need to play for these right hand notes. So you'll play down, tap, tap, up. And the left hand line down here shows you for the left hand, you're going to play an up, down, tap, tap. And I don't know if you can see this practice pad, but essentially the concept here is if you're going to play a paradiddle and you're going to accent that first right note, then in order for it to be an accent, you want your stick to start high. And that means at some point in this thing here, right, left, right, right, left, left, you're going to lift up. And this is showing you that it's this last right stroke where you can lift up. So the right-hand part goes down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up. And what's good about this is if you know you can lift up on that last right-hand stroke, it gives you lots of time to prepare. So right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. You've got essentially 3 16th notes worth at the end here where you can prepare for that accent. And if you are unaware of what strokes you need to use to play this rudiment, what might happen is you just don't lift this hand up until you're about to play the accent, which would look like right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. So you end up going, oh, I've got to play an accented right hand and my right hand is down here. And you kind of rush to get that last thing in. So the idea behind the stroke guide is that it helps you see when you can prepare for accented strokes. So this has been a feature of PolyNome for a long time that probably hardly anybody knows about. But it's at a slow tempo here, so you can hear, if I turn this fader up, that you can hear a voice telling you the down and tap and up strokes.
Down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up, down, tap, tap, up.
So you can work on one hand at a time. You can turn the left, oops, you can turn the left hand up too.
Up, tap, tap, down, 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 up.
So that's quite a common thing that rudimental drum teachers would explain at some point. And you can apply this to any rudiments that you want to work on and make more efficient. So the extra niche feature here is that Andre had started to teach this idea based on Iaido. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's apparently Japanese sword, like martial art. And there's a lot of stuff with how you breathe and when you prepare to chop somebody's head off or whatever. He would explain it much better. But now I've added this mode, especially for him, because he was so great recording samples for me. And I actually quite like it. I put it in because when he explained it, I thought, oh, that's actually quite a neat idea. So the idea with this is instead of having down, tap, tap, up, which are just kind of words and you can, there's a principle to it. But with this, if I just turn the right hand part, you have this ah, which is the downstroke, and this e, which is like a e. So he's recorded these samples and it sounds cool. So now you hear that upstroke with that long syllable. So if I do the right hand, so you're just thinking about the preparation and the accent. And you can see the other notes are written with dots. So there's nothing to say here. You just kind of know that there's right hand stroke. So yeah, that's the most niche feature you'll probably find on any app anywhere, I'm guessing. And it's in there if you want it. I'm going to turn off the stroke guide and move on to some more regular things.
Joe, won't you just show us where you got that off? Where did you get the?
Okay,
I missed it when you actually opened the stroke guide. Okay,
so first of all, you want to check that you're on. What are we on? This is 25.073, which is not released yet, but 25.072 has this new version in. So basically, I'm going to clear this. So all you have to do is enter a rudiment up here on line 1 with right and left strokes and put some accents in, and then tap on the menu and stroke guide is down here. And learn more will take you to a help page that explains more about it. If you say do it, it creates the stroke guide. And then on this menu, you can choose between the down, tap, open, full and the Iaido sounds. And this is also dynamic. So if I switch this back to down, tap, up and full. So down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap for accenting that note and that note. If I go in here and change this and take out that accent, for example, then you'll see it's changed the stroke guide. So down, tap, 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 up, tap, tap. So it kind of updates as you change what's in here. So yeah, there you go. Super niche feature. So what else is new? Compound time signatures have always been a bit of a tricky one in PolyNome. So I'm going to reset this metronome for a moment. Reset. Okay. So in the metronome faders down here, oh, and there's a new, I changed this, so now there's just this filter button, so you can filter on metronome faders. So you've got the 1 fader, which plays the quarter note, and then E and A faders play those 16th notes. So 1 EN, a 2 EN, a 3 EN, a 4 EN. The trouble when you had a compound time signature like 6/8 is that the pulse in proper compound 6/8 is a dotted quarter note. But these faders, like if I tried to change this one to be the dotted quarter note, then the E and A faders would no longer make any sense. So what I've added to kind of take compound time signatures into account, first of all, if you choose 6/8 from here, then you get this option to have compound on or off. So if you turn compound off, it treats it like a regular time signature. So it's 6/8 notes where the quarter note is the tempo and is the pulse, and it groups them together. So it will give me a time signature in 6/8, and it groups those 8th notes together in quarter notes, and the pulse is a quarter note. So here you can see quarter note is 120, and if I push up the 1 fader, so that's what 6/8 sounds like as a non-compound time signature. If I change this to be compound on, now it groups them in groups of 3/8 notes. So this isn't a triplet, this is just 3/8 notes grouped together. And we've got an accent on the first of each of those. And it's very, very hard to see this, but this is a dotted quarter note is 120. Okay, so that's 6/8 in compound time, dotted quarter note equals 120. And the way this used to function is it just gave you that rhythm and set the dotted quarter note. But it wasn't doing anything else under the hood. Now, what I've changed is that this grouping is now essentially dynamic, and it's based on what you have set here. So if I just change the tempo in here, don't change the tempo rather, but change the pulse, so it's now quarter note equals, and hit done. Now these are grouped together by the pulse. And that technically works in other time signatures as well. If I was to go to 5/8, which I don't have the compound option for that, but 5/8 with quarter note equals groups these together as a 2, and a 1. If I do this as a dotted quarter note, it groups it as a 3 and a 1 and a 1. And I'll probably change this so that it does a 3 and a 2. But essentially, I'm showing you that this grouping, this beaming together of notes is happening based on the pulse here, rather than based on what I entered. So if I go to edit this rhythm, the way I used to do, these are all single notes. So if I can select that note. So this is another new thing essentially under the hood. It used to be that if you wanted to have 3/8 notes grouped together, you had to go to the dot here and choose this. So this is one note group. This is a single thing. And that was the only way to have things beamed together. But now it will group together things into whatever the pulse is. So we're in dotted quarter note. So it's going to try and group together whatever you enter into dotted quarter notes. So if I have a quarter note and an 8th note, okay, maybe it doesn't do that. Let me just double check what I'm in here. Okay, oh, no, what am I talking about? Yeah, it's not going to put a beam on a quarter note, is it? So we're in 5/8 with dotted quarter note. If I edit this rhythm and put in like an 8th note and 2/16 and another 8th note, now it beams those together. That didn't used to happen. So now you can enter things like this. Whoops. what's going on? Oh, now you can enter things like this. Hold on. Let me put this back into 6/8. Excuse me. So now you can do things like this, where you have an eighth note and then a triplet and an eighth note with the beaming across the top. So that's the new thing. In 4/4, you probably use it more in 4/4. So you can see it's doing this beaming, and it's doing it in groups of 3. Oh, sorry, 4/4. It's doing it in groups of 3 eighth notes because the tempo was set to dotted quarter note equals. If I change this to be regular quarter note equals, notice how the beaming will change. So now it's grouping them in 2s. But essentially, this allows you to enter things. I haven't even really tried it a lot with this, but let's try a 16th note and then a triplet and then an 8th note and then a 16th note. What? Maybe get this. Okay, so it's trying to beam things together to keep the quarter note pulse there. So that was something that people would ask for a lot. How do you put a triplet in the middle of a beamed group? And you didn't used to be able to do it, and now you can. So that is the new compound time signature and automatic beaming. And then if you are in 6/8, so if we, I just have to put something in here so that I can see the time signature. So if we're in 6/8, and it gives me a rhythm, and you wanted to use these metronome faders to hear the pulse. So you wanted to put a different rhythm in here, but you wanted to hear that quarter note pulse. So notice if I push up the 1 fader, we're hearing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But you want a pulse for the 6/8 time, which is 1, 1 and a 2 and a. You want it there, 1 and a 2, 1, 2. You can do that by using this mark fader, which essentially is a sound that plays whenever you want it to play, and you choose that by choosing set mark position. So you can say every 16/8 notes or every 21 quarter notes or whatever you want. So this allows you to just put a sound at sort of specified places. So you might use the mark fader, for example, to play a crash every 4 bars or something like that. You could use it to play every 3/8 notes, which would give you that pulse that you need. But rather than force you to go in here and push that up and set that, I just added it to this quick metronome setting. So now you can choose dotted quarter, and that pushes up that mark fader and sets that mark position to be 3/8 notes. So if you hadn't spotted this quick metronome, it's a quick way to change these metronome faders. So whether you want the bar sound on or off, whether you want any subdivisions at all, whether you want a quarter note, triplet, 16th note, and then you can choose sounds as well in here. So if you choose voice count, it will play a voice count on the metronome.
1.
We'll push up the 1 fader.
2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
4, 2,
This is counting bars.
1,
1,
2,
2,
3, 4, 2,
2,
2, 3, 4, 3,
3,
2, 3, 4, 4,
1.
2.
It's counting bars because the bar fader is up. If you pull the bar fader down, it just counts 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3.
And if you wanted it to count 8 bar sections, you would push the bar fader up, go to set sounds right here, and oh man, this is another bug. I haven't sorted this out yet. This would tell you this is the bar. So if you click this sound picker, somebody did ask a question about this, so I will show some details. It's a bit broken in my version. But essentially this usually says bar and not question mark. So over here, let's do it on this. So the sound picker, on the right hand side, you have metronome, sequencer 1 and sequencer 2. Actually, that should say rhythm 1 and rhythm 2. And down here, you have the different options within that rhythm. So these are those sound buttons that you see on the edit pattern page. And when one of these is highlighted, it means that when you tap an arrow on one of the sounds on the left, it will assign it to whatever is selected. So if I want to assign this beep 1 to this R button, I just hit the arrow and it assigns it. If I don't hit the arrow and I just tap on the row, it auditions the sound. So I can audition before I assign, and then I assign with this, or you can drag and drop. And then the reason for these ear buttons is to allow you to hear, to jump to where this sound is. So let's say, for example, I have a pad sound on this button, and I want to assign that same pad sound to this button. First of all, I have to find this. So tapping on this ear button finds it for me. Maybe I should make it a magnifying glass. And then I can select this sound to assign, and there I can tap the ear button to show it, to reveal, and tap the arrow to assign it. So it's a bit convoluted, but it was the quickest way I could find if I wanted to be able to, for example, quickly set the same sound for lots of different things. So let's say this one I want to assign a kick sound to. I can search for kick up here. I can audition different kick sounds and then hit the arrow to assign it to this. And then if I want to assign that same kick sound to lots of different things, it's really easy to do. So again, the ear button lets you find a sound. Theory. Oh, okay. So that's not working because I'm currently filtered on kick, so I can't see that one. So I'll clear the filter. So there's the pad 2. So I'm going to assign the pad 1 back to these, or I can drag it. So that's how that works. You can assign individual sounds to the buttons, and the same for sequencer 2. And then the metronome, like I say, normally this says bar 1, E, and A, but I'm in the middle of some updates, so it's showing question marks. And what I was going to say is this bar is playing currently voice 1 to 4. So if you wanted it to count 8 bar sections, you just choose voice 1 to 8 and assign that so that it shows up here. And now it will count 8 bar sections. So I went off on a lot of tangents there. And finally, if you, for example, in sequencer 1, if you assign very specific things to this, or to the metronome, this might be a better example. Let's say we want percussion, like shakers. We want a whole bunch of shakers, right? So I'll just assign shaker to the bar, a different shaker to the 1, a different shaker to the E. So all these shakers to these different partials of the metronome. Let's say I want to be able to easily recall this anywhere else in the app. I can save this set. So I can call this shakers. And I'll put it with a Z like that, a Z. Okay, so I've saved a set now called shakers, and that will show up in here. Shaker. I put it with a Z because I knew I had one called shakers. So those sound sets for the metronome show up on the right here. So you can create whatever you want. And let's say you don't want this run, set of sounds. Let's just turn these up so you can hear what they are. So if I'm playing, so if I go to the shakers one, that's quite nice actually. So let's say I didn't want that run sound set to be in here. I can edit, and yeah, so these are my saved sound sets, which I can apply from here. And I think you can swipe across and delete. Now, if you have a backup and then you load the backup in, it will load these sound sets back in. So you'll want to make a backup after deleting so that you can have the version without them in. Anyway, that is how you assign sounds to something. And when you save sound sets, it puts them in here. And by default, this sound picker loads up with sets loaded, so that if you're on the sequencer, you'll see it's different sound sets for the sequencers as opposed to the metronome, because it's different buttons that you're assigning to. So I have a drumline snare one here, for example, which plays everything on snare hits. And those sequences are what are applied to here. So if I go to edit this rhythm, add sounds under here, that sound set that I was talking about is what sounds are assigned to all of these buttons in here. Okay, one more thing that was from what's new. I know I'm dragging on a little bit here, so sorry about that. If you have a CSV file, comma separated values, which is basically just text in columns, for like a band set list where you've got your songs, song name, tempo, you can now import that. Go to the menu, scroll to the bottom, this import song list. You choose the file. So I have an example one down here. I want one of the small ones, test CSV. Okay, so you open the CSV file and then you click on this and you go, this particular CSV file has a header row where song is one of the titles. So I'll choose song for the song title. For the BPM, I'll choose tempo. Time signature, if it's there, assign that. Duration, if you have it, we can assign the duration, and the same for time signature, but this particular one you can see doesn't have a time signature. So when you have that, you hit continue, and it will then show you what it's pulled from that CSV. So it's pulled these titles, these tempos, these time signatures, and these durations. And if that all looks good, if it doesn't, you can go back to edit the mapping. If it does look good, you create a playlist, test import CSV, and that will create a playlist of those clicks for you, and it should load it up. So there you go. Now you've got click tracks in the right, time signatures and tempos for all of the songs on your list. And one thing I will note about this is whenever you create a new preset, either with this or with the song click search, so say you wanted to add Roxanne to this list, you can go and edit the playlist and hit plus and choose song click. So I'll search for Roxanne. So I want to add Roxanne by the Police, add it to the playlist. That will pull the BPM and key signature and tempo information from Spotify and create click track. So all of these click tracks, the sounds that they use for this are pulled from the template preset. So if you go to the library and go to presets, there is a template preset. And if you tap on it, there's a web page, tap to view, this banner will show up, or the help page will automatically load. And if you miss that banner, you can always tap on this little I button and say view web page. And this will explain it, so I won't go into details, but essentially that template is used, it's not very long. When you create a new preset in PolyNome, it uses whatever sounds are assigned to the metronome and the sequences. So if you always have a particular sound that you would want to play this rhythm, you can set it on that template, and then when you create new presets, they pull from that. Okay, that's pretty much what's new. If you use quick access in playlists, so like, for example, here's a playlist. Down at the bottom of the playlist, you've got this quick access row, and this is essentially a list of other playlists. So each of our, other playlists. This is a playlist, that's a playlist. All of these things are in my playlists library. And the purpose of quick access is, for example, if you are on a gig and you want click tracks for the songs, and each click track has multiple sections, maybe it's queuing you into the verse and the chorus. Oh yeah, that's another new feature I should show you. You can't do that in a single click track. You might need, for example, I don't know if any of these I actually... Okay, so you might want a click track like this, where it's got 4 clicks and then it tells you the verse is coming up, and then it tells you the chorus is coming up. So rather than having a playlist with all your songs where each song takes up like 20 rows like this and they're all one after another, you can create each click as a playlist, and then you can use the quick access feature to have them accessible, because basically when you get to the end of this, the quick access automatically scrolls to the next one. So you just have to tap this to load the next song. So when we get to the bottom of this, you can see it scrolls along. We tap on this I'm not scrolling it, it's doing it. So we get down here, it automatically goes to the next one. And if you wanted to jump to somewhere else in the set list really quickly, you can tap on these three dots and view edit contents. And now you're seeing that quick access laid out like this. So these are all playlists that are linked in this quick access. So I can now load like Hey Jude, and it loads the click for that. So if you want to create a new quick access, you can do it by tapping on here, choose new quick access, you give it a name, and then it tells you, I think, the first time you do it, it tells you got to hit on edit and tap this button on the left and insert links to playlists. So that takes you to the playlist library, and you can say, I want this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and that one, and insert links. Now you have this quick access playlist where you can jump to any of those playlists really easily. And when you close this, it loads up whatever. It's loaded up the introduction, but now what we just created is available in this row down the bottom. Now, it used to be that if you wanted to load another quick access, you had to do it from here. So you had to tap on this and choose load a quick access, which shows you all of your saved quick access things, and you can choose one to load it. I've added that functionality to the library. So if you go to the library and you're viewing playlists, you can now tap up here and say view load a quick access, and that shows you your quick access playlists. And when you're in this mode, you can add one, new quick access playlist. So that's the same as doing it from the active playlist. All right, so take a breath, sorry. There's one other thing I'm not going to show you now. I'll show you where to find it. If you have a track markup preset, so the track markup presets are where you have like a YouTube video or Apple Music song, and you're adding section and bar markers. And whenever it creates them, it puts a tag of headphones. So you can go find them by filtering on this tag. So, for example, one of these I will have done as a demo. Okay, so here's an example of a track markup preset, which is a YouTube video, and I've gone through and put in markers for the start of each of these sections. This first one I just called section, so I can tap on this and edit it and maybe call it intro. And then I can edit this next section and call this intro. I don't know why the next one is called outro. I might have just been messing around with it. So I've got a whole bunch of intros. So this is not the best example, but we got verse, section here. Let's call this chorus. So it's really quick to map out a song. And what I wanted to show you is if you've done that with a song to map it out, you can now tap on this button and choose create cue track. And this will create a playlist for you with items for intro 3 reps, intro 1 rep, outro 1 rep. Told you it was labeled weird. Intro with 8 reps, verse with 4 reps, chorus with 8 reps. And this has the voice announce on. So I'll play this first one. You'll hear it will announce. It's going to be weird, but it's going to announce intro and then outro and then intro. Let's do it from here. Play from here. So it's going to play 8 reps.
Intro.
So it's going to give you a 1 bar cue to verse. So we're on bar 5, bar 6. When we get to 7,
Verse.
Ready, and.
So it cues you into the verse. So essentially you can mark up a song in the track markup, and then you can create your click track from that, and it gives you all of these things at the tempos that it figured out from the track markup. So if the song is all at one tempo and it just didn't quite get it right, you can specify the tempo in this preset. So right over here in settings, you can turn off auto calculate tempo, and then you can specify the tempo you want to use. And that will also be used on the lead sheet, which is in here, which shows you basically a map of the song that you could print out as a PDF, or you could attach so that you can view it while you're playing. Okay, I said I wasn't going to go into the details. That's a quick overview. All right, I'm going to quickly answer the couple of questions that were submitted. Douglas J asked, how can I make a pitched click, for example, 2 bars of 2/4, using 8th note clicks that incrementally go up in pitch by a half step with each click for the first bar and then down for the second bar? So the only way I can think of to do this is to use the keyboard sounds. So let's just do it in this regular metronome. So we're in 2/4. Let's do what he said. 2/4 with 8th notes. Well, here's the thing, by the way. If you edit the time signature here, it automatically, I'm going to do it to 1/4. It automatically creates a rhythm for you because I did that so that it can be used as a simple metronome. Give me a click in this time signature, like no messing around. It will overwrite whatever rhythm you've got in here. If you want to change the time signature without messing up your rhythm, you do it in the edit pattern page. So here's 1/4. If I change the time signature to 2/4 in here, it just changes where the bar line will be inserted, but it doesn't create the rhythm for me. So he said 8th notes, so 2 bars of 2/4. You would tap here underneath the notes to see these sound buttons. You can either assign sounds to all of these buttons, which you could do because I think I have keys in here. So let's say we assign C4 to this note. It will be quicker for me to change all of the button sounds if I go on this and say change button sounds. So we can see here, C4, I can locate it. So then I'm going to assign D4 to this one, and I should have done C#4. Let's do that to this one. D#4 to this one. You get the idea. You can drag these over your buttons. If I'd have thought about it, I would have looked at how those buttons were arranged, but it's not that important for this example. Okay, so now if I go back to this page, you can see we have all those. So we can go C, C#, D, D#, E, F, F#, G, and then back down. I guess starting here. Oops. E, F#, F, E, D#, D, C#, C. Interesting. Okay, that fader was down. Okay, so that's how you can do that. Now, another way to add notes like that is to use the keyboard. So down here, you can choose a keyboard, and you could have done it that way. But the difference with this is these notes will sustain for as long as the note, whereas the ones that are sounds you can assign to those sound buttons are short samples. So if on line 2, if I do a similar thing, listen to this now. So they're no longer played as short samples. If you use the sounds in here, in theory, they're played as short samples. And if you use the keyboard, they play for the duration of the note. I'm just going to keep an eye on the chat. All right, so that's that question. Richard Voss asked about the sound picker. Hopefully I've answered that question. One thing I'll point out is you can change the sounds for all items in a playlist. So this is a playlist where it's got a lot of items in it. If you wanted to change the sounds for the metronome or whatever rhythm is in here or anything else, for this preset and this preset and this preset and this preset, instead of doing it individually. Because if I go in here and do the sound picker for this and change some sounds, it's only going to change them for this item. If you want to change them for the entire playlist, tap on the playlist name, change playlist sounds, and you begin with X's above all of these things. If I make a change to something in here, like assign a different sound, that becomes a check mark. So it's going to apply this whole sequencer 1 set of sounds to the playlist, but it's not going to override sequencer 2 or the metronome settings. And you can toggle this on and off. So say I want to change just the metronome sounds, I can make some changes in here. And then when I hit done, those changes will be applied to everything in this playlist. So that's where to go if you want to change the sounds for an entire playlist. So I'm going to assume I answered Richard's question. You can email me, Richard, if you have updates to that. Ian said, please briefly discuss copying and pasting when in edit rhythm. Providing some where to look pointers would be more than sufficient. How to copy one or more bars and append them to the same rhythm. Copy one or more bars, insert them into the same rhythm, or copy a part from an existing preset for inserting into a new one. The last thing you can't do yet, but let's say you are, working on this, and you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 4, 3. If you want to copy this entire bar, the way to do it in here is choose the first thing you want to copy, long press or right click on a Mac and copy. So that will copy that single note, and you could long press over here and paste that note. If you then long press on something further along, like this, for example, you now have an option to copy to, because you copied the first thing, now you can copy to this. And then if you long press at the end, choose paste, it will paste in that entire bar. Let's say we have a bar of sextuplets like this. We can copy this, so long press and copy, long press on the end, copy to, and then I could paste that in here by long pressing on this, and it will paste after that. So I paste that bar in the middle here. So hopefully that answers that question. It's on my to-do list to make this clipboard of what you just copied rhythm-wise available so that you could then paste it into another preset. But at the moment, when you load this page up, it's not there. So that is something that I will try and add. And then the other thing I should note is that when you're copying and pasting like that, it's only the rhythm. It's not any stickings or anything you have assigned to them. I don't actually know what I have for that. Let's say we do right, left, pick, hat. Something like that. Let's delete this. So let's say you've copied and pasted this rhythm. So you have this. You can see that it loops it by default. So it's going to play that same sticking under this rhythm, which is great. But then when we get to here, let's say we want this to be all lowercase r for all this thing. So one way to do it is to, I think, long press here and duplicate sticking. So that will duplicate whatever's entered here up to this. If you did invert sticking right here, it will do the opposite of this. So if this was a paradiddle, this would be the inverse of a paradiddle. So that's a very drummer thing to want to do. You can also, if you start entering something here like a lowercase r, it will ask you what to do with what's in between. So repeat what's existing or invert what's existing. That will actually work for multiple repeats. So let's say I copy from here and copy to here and then paste that bar in again. So I'll, long press here to paste afterwards. So let's say if I just did long press on this line and duplicate sticking, it just does this one copy, right? But if I put the cursor here and do an R and say repeat existing sticking, it will loop that sticking that we had to fill whatever leads up to it. So there's quite a few things on the long press on these lines, hidden menus. You can invert what's here. You can switch lines, which will move everything from here to the line below. I can copy the sticking from this line to that line, switch lines again. And then use another thing where if you're on this and it's empty, you can tap and hold and you can move letters So I can pull down the H, for example, and that brings all of the H down onto line 2. So you can choose which letters you want to pull down, and that might be useful if you want right hands on one line and left hands on another line, for example. And the other thing you can do in here is switch letters. So let's say I wanted to make all of these H's actually be rests or something else. I can long press swap letters and sounds, and I can say take all of the H letters and replace them with a rest, and then replace the letter, swap. So things like that you can do. So I hope that answers Ian's question.
Yeah, that's perfect, Joe. Thank you very much.
And that was actually all the questions. The last question, which I'm going to show you a quick. So if you're still with me, I think there's a few people still here. If you're still with me and you have any quick questions you want to ask, please type them into the chat now, and I'll quickly show you what I've been working on the last couple of days. This is something that has been wanted for a while by a few different people. And the way that it came in the question, let me just clear this. The question for the Q&A was, can we have a B letter for meaning both? So let's say you want a quarter note here or a half note, and you want that to be notated as both hands. So one way to do it is to put an R here and then have like nothing on the thing underneath. You go into this and do an L. So that will show up as this. So that works, I suppose. But if B is used and you wanted to have a B, there used to be no way to do it, or there currently is no way to do it. Some of the things I've implemented are if you change the sound of the L to, for example, guitar, melodic stabs, guitar mute up and down. Okay, there you go. So if I sign guitar mute up and down, notice that when I add this, it uses the symbol for a guitar mute. So you can use those in notation, and that's kind of helpful. But it still says L on the button. So what I've added, or what I'm adding to the next version, is you can long press a button and you can change the symbol. So now you can, oh wow, that looks great on iPad, doesn't it? Now you can choose from various shapes. So you have those guitar mute things, you have arrows that you could use for up and down, bunch of circles, any letter that you want. So you could choose B, for example, and now, obviously I have to change this. This is what I have to figure out, is what happens if the sound already overrides the symbol. So let's just put a blip for that. So now this letter, whenever you enter it, is B. Now what I've added is some drum things. So I've got a kick drum, what's supposed to be like a snare, hi-hats, and this is fine, but you need really good eyes. So I could technically enter like a drum groove here. So instead of using R for the hi-hat, I can now change the symbol and use a hi-hat. That's my hi-hat. And down here, I could have the kick, instead of be a K, be my kick drum. And then snare, let's change that to be the snare. This is the snare drum. I might put a stand on it, I'm not sure. And let's make that sound, the snare sound. Oops. Okay, so now your drum score might look more like this.
Intro.
Oh, let's just loop this. So I know it's still not proper notation, but in some ways, maybe this is easier to understand. I don't know. This is what I can get to at this point. The issues I'm having is that I'm using these symbols on the faders, and like, I know these, I'm working on trying to be able to have a bigger mixer. You can tap a fader, by the way, to get a big version of it, but this is still really tiny. So I'm rewriting some of this stuff, so at least you'll be able to see on the big fader what it is that you're dealing with. But yeah, now hi-hat is a little hi-hat symbol, and you can bring the volume of that down. bring the volume of the snare down to just hear the bass drum. So that's what I'm working on. I'll show you, you can freeze frame on this. So you long press a button, change symbol. Like I say, it's not in your version. This is what I have. A few drum things. This is the crash, a flat cymbal on a stand. This is a ride, an angled cymbal on a stand. That's my floor tom. These are like meant to represent rack toms. This is supposed to be a cowbell, clave, shaker, and triangle. Those are hard to see, and I don't really know that I can do much because I can't make them bigger. And if I make the lines thicker, you lose detail. So whether people use these or not, I don't know. But then you've got some shapes which are quite easy to see. So diamonds and squares and circles and half filled in circles and things like that. X that you could use to represent a cross stick, for example. And then all your uppercase and lowercase letters and numbers. So if there's anything you would like to see in this that isn't in that list, please email me, support@polynome.net, to let me know, and I'll try and add it. And yeah, that's what I am working to get out, because I think a lot of people will like that, because it was always a bit obscure that I had. Let me just load up a preset that's the default. This has always been a bit odd that you have RLKH and then all these other R's and L's. And the history behind that is it used to be just 4 buttons. This is what you used to have. And R represented the right hand, which could be the hi-hat. L represented left hand, which could be a snare. K represented kick, right foot, and L represented hi-hat, left foot. But that's very drummer-centric, obviously. So now if you're a guitarist, you could assign whatever things you want to these buttons, or, if you want to use up and down arrows to indicate something, you can use that. You can make it what you want. And the reason that I ended up with different versions of the L and the R was some drummer might want to use L to represent a snare drum and then lowercase l to represent a ghosted snare drum. So you can assign the same snare sound, but you can bring the fader down. And also a lowercase l in a sticking, you can imagine that being a quieter version of a left hand. And it just made more sense to have 3 different options for what you might do with your right hand. Maybe a big accent, regular stroke, and a quiet stroke. So that's why these are the defaults, but in future versions, you will be able to choose your own button symbols, and they will be saved per rhythm in each preset, and you'll be able to copy and paste those into other ones. So if you've got a whole bunch of items in a playlist and you want to change every occurrence of that R to be something else, you will be able to use the copy and paste to do that. So yeah, I ran over a little bit, but hopefully answered all the questions that were asked in the chat and the submissions, and some other stuff as well. And I also found a bunch of bugs that I got to fix tomorrow. So productive on all accounts. I'm going to say thank you for those who joined me live, and thanks if you're watching this on replay. I'm going to stop the recording. So cheers.